So there are stages of licensing in Alberta. We have the Graduated Driver's License Program. That's what GDL stands for. And there's 3 stages to that GDL program that every single person has to go through. So regardless of your age, like most people, you can start this when you're 14. However, some people wait, and even if you're like in your 30s and you've never gotten your license, you still have to start at stage 1. So the driver's license program, or the graduated driver's license programming, is not only for youth or underage or anything. It's everybody who's a new driver needs to start at this level. So stage 1 is kind of where we're at, where we're preparing you guys to get your learners. And once you pass that knowledge test, you are in stage 1 of the driver's license program, where you will have a class 7 license. Stage 2 is once you get your learners and you pass your knowledge test, then you get to go practice on a vehicle. And then if you pass your road exam, you get to go into stage 2, which is your probationary period of your class 5 GDL license. And that actually lasts 2 years. You have to be on that probationary for a minimum of 2 years. And then you need to take another road exam to get off of the probationary period. And then you enter into stage 3, which is your full non-GDL driver's license, class 5. So you would have no restrictions on that, and you'd be basically, stage 3 is where you leave the GDL program. You've passed everything, you've demonstrated that you're a responsible driver, and then you're able to move on to other classes as well. So stage 1 is 1 year. Stage 2 is a minimum of 2 years. So in total, the whole GDL program, the minimum amount of time you'd have to spend on that GDL program is 3 years of good driving. Of course, that can go longer. There's no expiration, and there's no mandatory requirement for you to leave that probationary. Like, you could stay at stage 2 with your GDL class 5, and a lot of people do stay at that level just to drive. But say you wanted to move on to other classes of driver's license, which we'll talk about. Say you wanted to become a commercial driver or truck driver, then you would have to exit the GDL program and progress into other classes. So a lot of people can stay at the probationary program, but it depends on your career and where you want to go. So if you get off the GDL program, it actually can help with your employment opportunities down the road, because employers like to see that you have a full GDL or full class 5 license, non-GDL, you have no restrictions, and you've demonstrated that you're a good, responsible driver, and you've passed all those road exams and things like that. It also can help with demerits and other things, which I'll talk about. So we're at stage 1. But you might be asked about these different stages. So the knowledge test, as I keep talking about, I'm going to go into more detail about what that knowledge test looks like. Some of you may have written the knowledge test already and you're familiar with it, but just in case, I'll go over some of it. So before you get any class of license, like I said, to start that stage 1, you need to pass a driver's knowledge test. The test is administered at a registry office, and they have them all over Alberta. So usually in your area, you could look up and find where to find a registry office. So down at the bottom, I have a link there, which talks a little bit more about the knowledge test and to find locations near you, or fees. But even just going into Google Maps and you type registry office, you should be able to find one in your area. But the knowledge test is based on the driver's guide, and it consists of 30 multiple choice questions. So, and those are randomized. So you're never gonna get the same test again. So say you go in and write a test and you're like, oh, I was so close, just needed a couple more. And then you try to go back the next day and write it again. You're gonna get a different test. Most of them are administered on the computer, and there's in their test bank or their question bank, they have like over 600 questions, possible questions they could ask you. So each test every person gets is pretty individualized and randomized. You're never going to get the exact same one. But you will have to answer all 30 questions to complete the test. And you must answer 25 of those questions correctly to pass. So you are allowed to get 5 of them wrong, but as soon as you get the 6th question wrong, the test will usually shut down and then you won't be able to go any further. So I always recommend that when you're writing your test, there is a skip button. So if you get up there and there's a question that you're not totally sure on, you can always skip it, go on to the next question, and then at the end of the test, it'll come back to your question. So you won't be able to just keep skipping and it won't give you a brand new question, but you can skip it and then go back to it at the end. So it's giving you some time to maybe think about it a little more, and it helps you set you up to answer all the questions that you know that you're really confident in. So then you know by the end that you're doing pretty good. And if you get a couple wrong, it'll also tell you on the side of the screen. It'll kind of tell you how many you have wrong. And I know some people get really worried once they start getting to 4 or 5 questions wrong. They start getting a little bit of anxiety, like, oh my God, I can't get another one wrong or I'm gonna fail. So I always recommend to just answer the ones that you know really confidently first, because it sets you up in a good position by the end to go back to the ones that aren't as, you're not as confident on. There's also no time limit to the knowledge test, which is good. So you don't have to have pressure. There's no timer on it or like 30 minutes. They don't give you a minute a question. It's up to you how long you need to take to write that test. But I also recommend that you leave yourself enough time. So don't show up there like if it closes at 4 p.m. and you show up at 3:30 and you're scrambling to get it in, then you're going to be under a time crunch. So if you do plan to go write that knowledge test, just make sure you check the hours of operation for that registry office. And so you know, oh, we got someone else joining. So those are my sort of recommendations for writing the test. And I'm going to go on to some commonly or frequently asked questions. And then after that, I'll take a minute just to see if anyone has any more questions on the learner's exam. So how much does the test cost? You have to take that test at the registry office, as I said, and it's usually $17. There shouldn't be any more than that, but that's at least the bare minimum. It'll be $17. Sometimes registry offices can adjust their fees a little bit, but for the most part, every registry office, it should be about $17 just to write it. To actually, if you pass and then you go to get your learner's license, there's an additional fee there, but just for writing is $17. So what if you fail the test? Are you allowed to take it again? Yes, you are definitely allowed to take the test again, and you're allowed to take it as many times as required. Some people have taken it 13 times, like no joke. Some people just keep going back, and you can keep doing that as much as you want. It doesn't like hurt you to go back and write it again or anything. They're not going to keep that on your record of like, oh, it took them this many times to write it. So however much you need to, you can go back and write it again, but you will have to pay that fee every time. So it's not like you pay it one time and then you get to keep rewriting. You have to pay that $17 fee every time you go to write the test. The only restriction is that you're only allowed to write the test one time per day. So if you go in on a Monday and you write the test, say you go in the morning and then you're like, oh, I only needed one more to pass. You can't go back in that afternoon. You're gonna have to wait until the next day to go write that test. So another question, what if I'm not very good at English? So some testing stations, they do have like an audio assistance device, or you can purchase headphones from the registry office. So if you buy those headphones, it'll read out, the computer will read out some of the questions for you and the answers. So that could help you potentially. But most of those registry offices charge you a fee, and you have to buy their headphones just for security measures, in case you bring in some like Bluetooth headphones and you got your buddy in the lobby feeding you answers and stuff like that. They mostly require you to bring to purchase their own headphones. Some registry offices here might let you bring your own and use your own headphones, but that's not very frequent. So be prepared if you do want that audio assistant option. Be prepared that you might have to pay an additional fee to get their headphones. And this service, the audio service, is actually only available in English and only for the Class 7 license. So there isn't any other languages that it reads out on. But if you have difficulty reading English and you only need a little bit of help, like say with some of the terminology, you can actually use an English dictionary. You can bring in a paper version of the dictionary, but you have to bring it yourself. That one they don't supply, but if it's something that you really want to bring with you, just in case, that's a good option, to have an English dictionary with you, because they'll let you have that with you just to look up terminology and things like that. So more frequently asked questions. What if I pass the test, but I can't afford to pay that license fee? So I was mentioning that it's $17 to write the test, but there's an additional fee if you pass and you want to get your learner, like you want to get your actual card. Oh, Troy's joining us now. So if, say you go in and you only had the $17 to write because you weren't sure if you're going to pass or not, and then you passed and you're like, oh, but I don't have enough money to get my learner's license. You can actually, once you pass your knowledge test, they give you a little test permit, and that proves that you passed the test, and that's valid for 1 year. So that little paper slip they have, you can actually keep that and then come back, say like next month or next payday, you can come back with that slip, and then you'll be able to pay the additional fee for your learner's license. For about 5 years of a learner's license, it's around like $85. So just to be mindful in your budget. But if you just don't have enough money right away, but you want to go right away, like I said, taking that test sooner than later is a little bit better. So if you can come up with the $17 and go write it now, but you don't have all the money for the licensing fee, don't worry, that's not a big deal. As long as you pass, they have it in their system and they'll give you that permit that proves that you passed. And that's good for a year. As long as you go back within 1 year, then you won't have to write that test again. But if you wait too long, and if you wait over a year to go back and get your license, then you'll have to write the test again. But just gives you a little bit of time to plan. Another question is, can I get a reader when I take the test? So most places, you're not allowed a reader, or they don't have the staff to give you a reader. To write it in English or print out. Some registry offices, like in small towns, can be a little bit more accommodating, but I found in Edmonton, they're just usually quite busy and they don't have the staff capacity to sit down and read the questions with you. So also in other languages, they do have the test written in a lot of different languages, and one of them is Cree. So if you are more fluent in another language and you need somebody to help you translate it to English, you can have that option, but usually you have to get an approved translator. They have to be approved by transportation, and you have to either pay for their services and have them there. So those are all options. It just depends on your individual situation. And then I always recommend, like I said, to go to the Government of Alberta knowledge test and Alberta Transportation website. They have a lot more details if you need that translator, that extra support. They can help with that, which is here at the bottom. I put Alberta Transportation Client Support Center, and I can put that in the chat just for you guys if you want to save that phone number for Alberta Transportation's Client Support Center. So if there's any other questions or something that comes up later on after this course and I'm not able to answer, then that Alberta Transportation Client Support Center can definitely figure out the details of if you need any accommodations or anything specific for writing that test.